Welcome, everyone. It's the Mike Tech Show, show number 930. Tonight, going to talk about the client DNS issue that I had, only it's the resolution. And a great group of emails I am going to review, which led me to the solution. Listeners, you really stepped up, and I am so happy. I got lots of great responses and used it all, and I will address that and talk about it. So I'm gonna read them. That's how we're gonna kick the show off. Email migration project I began, and I ran into an interesting error, and I'm going to talk about that and how to get help from Microsoft. Only they could fix it. Right now, I am in the middle of a dental office server migration. I'm going to talk about that. And then a quick Mac tip of something that I thought about, that's something I don't use. And on the fly yesterday on a phone call, I remembered, and I was able to tell my client, I want to talk about a couple things too with the Mac. And that's it. And then I have a couple other emails that aren't DNS related. So let's be, but before we start, a couple things. And anybody in the chat tonight, in the pre-show and post-show, you're going to hear Frank Sinatra, because today is Frank's birthday, and he would have been 109. So happy heavenly birthday to Frank Sinatra. And it's been rare me recording a normal time on a Thursday night. And last Thursday, I was picking up my son at the airport because we had that concert on Saturday, which was phenomenal. Had a tremendous time. So that's why last week's show was on Tuesday. So that was the 97X Next Big Thing. That's our 4th year in a row that I've attended that. And this is the last show before the holidays from Florida. I head back to Pennsylvania on Sunday. So the next 4 shows will be, God willing, everything fine, will be Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m., but from Pennsylvania. So that will be December 19th, the 26th, January 2nd, January 9th, and then the 12th, I come back here, and then I am here for the next 5 months. So let's get started. You remember I was Tuesday, the last show, I was on December 3rd, I addressed the problem where a client moved. That's all they did. We picked up the server and moved it and kept the same IP addresses, kept the same everything. It's Active Directory, DNS, DHCP integrated from Active Directory. I don't think I mentioned all that because as I read the emails, there's things that I had already checked, but that's okay. Whenever I ask for help and you can just comment anything on it, incredible. And I'm so thankful to all the suggestions. So the problem is when you reboot, the machine is not really authenticating on the domain because their map drives aren't working. They're listed but not connected, and I have to remap the first drive, and then they all connect. Well, I'm going to talk about the solution, and then I'm going to read all these emails because there's lots of great info contained in there for suggestions. The fix was disabling IPv6. This is now the second time where that has helped with a problem. So took an unchecked IPv6 on the network adapter. Then, the network adapter of the workstation. Okay. Then next, I hard coded the IP address, the static IP address of the server, which is the DNS. Now, what's interesting, when I ran an IP config, that was the DNS. Reboot it, and then it was part of the domain and all the drives were mapped. So let's take a look at some of these emails. First one from Bill. And this is glad to hear you and yours are doing great. The problem with drives not mapping, have you tried group policy from the domain or just local? Bill, great suggestion. I was ready for that if I couldn't do a permanent fix, which I was able to do. So that was in my back pocket. So I want to thank you. That was great. This is from Don. To your problem from show 929, where your son moved the server from one office to another, was it provisioning DHCP to the workstations? Yes, it was. More specifically, what is the DNS server address defined on the workstations? And when I ran an IP config, it absolutely was the IP address of the server that was doing the DNS. In order for Windows authentication to work, the domain controller must be the first IP address listed next to the DNS servers. Now, this is where it was IPv6 listed first. Then it was the DNS server. So that's why I unchecked IPv6. Now, regarding the inability to save map drive, with ScanSnap, there is a new version of the ScanSnap software, the ScanSnap Home. This is where I had to activate SMB1 in order to save to a mapped network drive on the scans. I haven't deployed that yet. So right now my client's working with the workaround I have, and I have to get back to them and download the new software. And that is a great suggestion, Don. Thank you very, very much for that. But I have been crazy busy the last couple weeks. All right. Great email from Ian. DNS issue. It sounds like AD is going external, as you said. But here are a couple things to check. Can you ping the domain as this should resolve to the server? Yes, I was able to ping the server name. Check that DHCP is putting the DNS search correctly. That was true. Use DNS query to check what the AD is set up as. It looks like something is not 100%. Now, I checked the forwarders, and they both worked and were working fine, and everything seemed to be resolving. He goes, sorry, I don't have a magic bullet, but I may point you in the right direction. And he has some links. And as for the deployment of the XPS printer, you should be using your remote management system and sending the following commands. And he gave me the commands, and I thank you so much. I have also created an auto unattend XML that I use to build our Windows 10 and Windows 11 desktops totally hands-free. I just plug in a USB drive and boot from it. And 10 to 15 minutes later, I have a totally custom desktop with a little bit of scripting. You can get it to install almost all your software, user accounts, settings, etc. Here's what I did. It will not work for you as is, as you don't have my USB drive, but it is an example of what you can do. And this is from GitHub as some links. And I'll be more specific in some of this in a future show. And I want to, Ian, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And he says, keep up the great work. I have been a long time listener from around show 25, when I think you gave out a capper mug. Yes, back then. That's great. A couple emails from Tim. And the first one, did the IP address change or did Comcast give you the same IPS back? No, they didn't. And Tim, your email came first, hit my inbox first. And I really started looking at that because it was a different public static IP. And I didn't get anywhere with it. You said you're using DHCP. Is DHCP coming from Comcast or coming from the server? It is coming from the server because we did disable DHCP from Comcast. If the IP address changed on the server, which it did not, then the DNS server is probably not working correct. And man, I triple checked that. So I wrote back to Tim and I had asked, I had given him all the answers to his questions. And he says, I haven't really had to do this in 30 years. I just know I've had to do it before. When you do an IP config/all on all the client workstations, is the DNS entry that of the domain controller? Yes. Now, this is interesting. Run DNS management MSC on the domain controller under forward lookup zones. Find your domain, see if the host settings are right. Is there for the record in question? Yes, it was correct. Right click on your domain name, properties, and see if everything in there looks correctly. Yes, and I emptied the cache. I restarted the DNS, and he even volunteered to jump in and help me out remotely if he could. Tim, thank you. Since I was able to resolve it on Friday, I haven't had a chance to literally reach out to everybody. So I want to thank you. Simon, just a couple of thoughts regarding your drive mapping issue in show 929. Could the new Comcast router be surreptitiously helping the clients through IP6 router advertisements? This is what led me to uncheck IPv6. British Telecom and Vodafone routers over here in the UK usually have IPv6 DHCP enabled, which is fine in the network adapter properties on one of the client, which is fine for residential but not good for Active Directory. As a test, try unchecking the IPv6 protocol in the network adapter properties on one of the client machines. A quick reboot, not a permanent solution. AD likes IPv6 and so do the client machines, but it may help to narrow down the calls. Worth checking the network profile on the clients too. If it's a new router, they may have flipped to public instead of private or domain. Now, it's interesting. Yes, that was a problem that we had noticed before I started talking about it on the show, and I went to private, but it should be domain. And now, and Simon, it's because of your email. When I applied the fix, putting the static IP for the DNS and unchecking IPv6, when we reboot it, it now read domain, not private, not public. That's why everything's working. So everything kind of got re-announced to the domain. So that was something else that was in my back pocket, which was worst case. I was going to drop it to use the Profile Wizard software. I was going to drop it to a work group and then re-announce it to the domain. That was, I started building a list of things to try where I had one guinea pig workstation. And it was last Friday when my son was on site and he was setting up a new replacement computer for the receptionist. And he couldn't announce it to the domain. And that's what made me drill down. I said, you go work on the other problems that he was there for. And I made sure by making the changes that I did, then I was able to get it announced to the domain, and then I knew I had it. So very, very interesting. Boy, don't we just love DNS? Okay. Here we go. Nice email. Long time listen to the show, and this is from David. I was listening to your show from last night, and I have some ideas about this. I must preface that I don't have as much experience as you have, since I have been relearning IT since 2010, and I don't really have a lot of experience with AD other than some of my recent course studies. Here are some thoughts. You may have already know these and have tried them, but here you go. When mapping the drives, do you get the option to reconnect at login, which used to be a checkbox? Yes, and we always have it checked. Is the AD domain controller on the same subnet scheme as everything else in the server? For example, everything running in subnet 192.168.10.0 and the subnet 255.255.255.0. And yes, I checked that. 3, does the DHCP scope have static reservations for the server components? No, because the range was from .1 of the last octet, .100 to .199. So the server is below that. The printers are below 100. So the scope it didn't need the reservations. But that was a great idea. IP address is changing for the map drive portions or the domain controller component. The client PCs cannot resolve the map drive names to the new IPs. As a question, is the correct DNS address being given to the PCs? And that's what the first thing everybody has mentioned tonight. And yes, if there are 2 DNS resolver addresses, maybe the PCs are getting the wrong one. You know, when this first happened, that's exactly what I thought was going on. He continues, just my thoughts. Like I said, I am relearning IT stuff since 2010, and I'm about to take my CompTIA Network Plus Cert exam on the 20th. Dave, good luck on that. And he says, love the shows. I haven't been able to tune in live on Thursday nights like I used to. Dave, good luck on the exam, and thank you so much. You're dead on the things you asked me to try. Everybody was. And I want to thank everybody because you led me to the solution, and which was great. And Friday morning, I was not leaving this problem until it was resolved. So very, very cool. Thank you. I have a couple projects still going. One I am actually doing right now. Dental office with a very, very old peer server. And now the new server is a real server running Windows 2021 standard, Windows Server 2021 standard. And the data directory of the dental software is 600 gig. And so I am now copying it using SyncBack to copy it from the one server to the other, and that's happening right now. I kicked that off at, I guess, 10 after 4, and we are 3.5 hours in, and it's still running, and it's still got a couple hours. That's why I wanted to do that tonight. The software is not available to the dental office tomorrow. The tech support, the software manufacturer, is calling me at 9 a.m. and I'm going to remote into the server, get them remoted in, and we're going to get the software up and running, marry it to that data that I copied. Then my son and I, and after I test one workstation, we have like 19 other workstations that we're going to remote into and make the change in the software. So now it finds itself going to the new server. They're going to be very, very happy because they were killing. Literally, we were killing for years on this peer server, and they finally got the budget together when they were doing the big move, and that was the big project I was talking about, all the Dell equipment and before I came down here in October. Just tremendous amount of work. And now we finally are able to, turn up the new server and activate it and get it working. So I'm going to be doing that all morning. And that's why we're not going to make it a late night tonight, because I got to get up early and be ready tomorrow, have my coffee and everything done, and be set at 9 a.m. Email migration, plumbing company, 20 mailboxes, not bad. And they're going from Ionis to Microsoft 365. They've been having lots of troubles with Ionis. So here's what we did. 6 of the users were just getting Microsoft 365 standard. So only 6 people in the office need the applications, the desktop applications. Everybody else, the other 13 users, only need mail. So we can use Business Basic, which is a lot cheaper. So we get the 6 licenses and I get them signed up. Not using a reseller, not just direct to Microsoft. I'm remoted in to their workstation as we do this. Now we try to add the other licenses and we keep getting an error that the credit card's not resolving. It's not being verified. Yet it worked when we set everything up. And it's not even being rejected by the credit card company. We added a second credit card and it didn't work. And it was giving a CV error. And each time we ran it, it gave a slightly different error. So I thought maybe things have to settle down. They don't trust it yet. So I tried it again as a global admin and as the owner who is a global admin. And I got the same problem. So I opened up right from the Microsoft 365 admin portal a support request. I put my cell phone number, my email, but did it under the owner's login and pasted the error and said, hey, I'm trying to buy more licenses and I couldn't. In about an hour, I got a phone call, and was this last night or the night before? And they called me right back, a tech. As a matter of fact, and Andrew, who I'm very, very happy with, he remoted into my workstation, and it was Microsoft. And we tried a couple things, and clearly it was on their side because he stopped. He did get a log from my browser and turned on the logging and recorded exactly what was happening while I was clicking to purchase the item. And he said he'll take that and work on it. About an hour after that, I get an email that the problem's resolved. They don't tell me on their end what was wrong, but they did fix it because I logged right in and was able to buy those licenses. And then I quickly did the imports for the accounts. So now I have all the accounts set up. And the next step, and I'm not going to do this until next week because I got so much happening, but I'm going to use the BitTitan migration wizard. So that's going to be the first link in the show notes for tonight. And I've linked that before. That is the magic sauce on doing a mail migration. It's not cheap. It's like 12 something per user. And, I'm going to times that by 19, but boy, it makes life easier. It's a one-time price. And I pass that along exactly what it cost because I'm billing for my time per hour as I do it. So client already aware of the cost, and I get to do a test migration. And then when it's the day of the cutover, just do a final cutover, and all the mail will be moved. The contacts, the calendar, just everything. So looking forward to that, and we'll probably do that on a Friday, probably a couple Fridays from now, whenever that lands. It's probably a Friday after Christmas, I'm thinking. Let's see. All right. Desktop stacks on a Mac. Got a call yesterday from a client on their Mac and panicking because of Outlook. It messed everything up, their SureWeb hosted exchange from their Mac and for their business, and they picked new. It's a client I didn't get to try to stop them from deploying Outlook new. Luckily, there was to go back to what the Outlook legacy, and they were able to go back to the legacy, and then everything came back because it removed autocomplete, didn't carry over when they went to the new Outlook, and a lot of their folders were missing. And that's because it still doesn't quite work with Exchange hosted that's not Microsoft. And that's why I'm against using the new version of the Outlook. Now, on Windows 11, it's not called Outlook Legacy, it's called Outlook Classic. You can tell I'm old because when I hear the word classic, I think of Coke Classic and the disaster when Coke changed the formula and came out with new Coke, and the world went nuts, and then they had to come back with, Coca-Cola Classic. Anyway, anytime I hear the word classic, I think of that. So they also mentioned that all of a sudden they have hundreds and hundreds of pictures and hundreds of PDFs. They don't know how it happened, but they're now on the desktop. So I said, there is a function. I can't remember how to invoke it. I said, let me look it up. And it's called Desktop Stacks on a Mac. So what it'll do when you invoke it, it'll stack. If you have 100 PDFs, it'll stack them as one icon stacked. And it'll just say PDF documents. So you can easily browse files in a desktop stack on your Mac. You can swipe left or right on the stack using two fingers, and you can change how they're grouped. And it was easy. You just had to go onto the desktop, a blank spot, click view, and group by stacks. It was that easy. And my client was like, oh, it's fantastic. They were so happy. And I just figured, this is a quick link for the show notes that I absolutely have to cover. So I want to get to one more email, and this is from Sonny. And Sonny, I really appreciate your follow-up. Sonny wrote us a couple weeks ago asking for a replacement recommendation for an Outlook client, and this is his follow-up. Back in mid-November, I asked you if you had any suggestions for an Outlook client replacement. You mentioned EM Client. I have been using it ever since the episode when you responded to my email. I also spent a little time with Mailbird. Now, I haven't heard of Mailbird, which is somewhat similar to EM Client. I didn't like Mailbird all that much, but I did find EM Client does a pretty good job of replacing much of what I did with Outlook. At least those things that mattered most, especially the same user experience I'd get with Outlook. Sure, it isn't as complete or capable as Outlook, but for my needs, it works. It has become my official replacement for Outlook, and I wanted to thank you for your suggestion and help with this. You've reduced a pain point I've been dealing with ever since Microsoft broke Outlook 2016. Very much appreciate it, Sonny. Thank you very much. Great email to close the show with. I want to thank everybody for downloading and listening to the show and subscribing via your RSS, whatever RSS feed aggregator that you use. Please email me any questions or suggestions and comments, miketechshow@gmail.com. Don't forget the main website, miketechshow.com. and you can get to all of the show notes. And more importantly, there's a donation button. And that is the great way to do a one-time donation or a continuous donation to help support the show. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And everybody who donates, thank you so much. Also, don't forget, the videos are posted up on my YouTube site, which is Michael Smith MTS on YouTube. That's it. See everybody next week. Same time, same channel. Bye-bye.